Quick vertical scan shows I've got transition words, so I need to get the right transition idea. So, in her poetry collection, such and such, Rita Dove interweaves the titular characters' personal stories with broader historical narratives. She places Thomas's journey from the American South to the Midwest in the early 1900s within the larger context of the Great Migration. So here's an example of the title characters, their stories in a broader historical narrative, okay? So blank Dove sets events from Beola's personal life against the backdrop of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. So specifically, Dove, thus, Dove sets events, regardless, Dove sets events, no, that wouldn't be. Similarly, so we have one example. She places Thomas's journey among the Great Migration. Similarly, Dove sets Beola's personal life against the backdrop of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. These are two examples of the characters intertwined with the greater or broader historical narrative. So yeah, it would be similarly to the previous example, not specifically. It's not about a result, and it's not contrasting. That's not right. Okay, quick vertical scan. We see all these contrasting words. Furthermore, is it additive? Is it contrasting? Is it comparison? Or is it somehow emphasizing or highlighting? In a heated debate in biogeography, the field is divided between dispersalists and vicariancists. Really, you don't have to worry too much about what those are. Most people wouldn't know what they are. Blank, there are those who argue that dispersal is the most crucial determining factor in a species distribution. Those who insist that vicariance is the most important factor. Such and such counts herself among neither. Okay, so we're setting off two different options. It wouldn't be furthermore, there are those. We wouldn't want an additive point. By contrast, no, we know the field's divided into two things. We wouldn't say by contrast. Similarly, no, we're not saying similarly. That is, we're emphasizing, we're highlighting the point that, it's divided into two, and one says dispersalists are important, and the other says vicariance is important. So that is, there are those who argue that dispersal is, that's it. I think it's going to be highlighting, kind of emphasizing the two different views of each of the groups that the field's divided into. D. Quick scan of the answers. We have basically a transition question. It's going to be additive, ultimately, like concluding, accordingly, in accordance with, the same as, consequently, as a result of. So what's the right relationship here? So notice we have a though. So in 1815, while in exile in Jamaica, Venezuela revolutionary Simón Bolívar penned a letter praising England's Republican government and expressing hope that Latin American nations seeking independence from Spain might achieve something similar. So he's appealing to England and wants his nation, Bolivia, to be essentially a republic. The letter was addressed to a local merchant, Henry Cullen. Semicolon. So ultimately, though, Bolivar's goal was to persuade political leaders from England and Europe to support his cause. Ultimately, though, so he penned it to a local merchant, Henry Cullen. Additionally, though, his goal, no, that's not an additive goal. Accordingly, though, we wouldn't say accordingly, though, that's kind of similar and contrasting together. Thus, though, no, we wouldn't say that. Ultimately, I think it's going to be ultimately. So in the end, though, Bolivar's goal was to persuade the political leaders, not just a local merchant. I think that's the idea. That was his ultimate goal. B. Okay, quick vertical scan. We can see this is a transition. So is it going to be additive, contrasting, more specific or focused, perhaps an example, or therefore a result? So let's see what we have. 2009, the Craft and Folk Art Museum in Los Angeles hosted a special exhibition, Sueños Yume, showcasing the works of local sculptor Dora de Larios. As suggested by the show's title, Sueños and Yume means dreams in Spanish and Japanese, respectively. De Larios' art reflects a mix of cultural influences. Specifically, her work is grounded in the artistic traditions of both Mexico and Japan. Maybe. In addition, her work, no, it's not an additive point. We already said she incorporates both, dreams, certain dream, by name, the Mexican and the Japanese names. So it's not in addition. In contrast, her work is grounded. No, it's not. In contrast, no, it's not a contrasting idea. And therefore, her work is grounded. No, it's not a conclusion, right? I mean, that's not bad, but if you think about it, it's really not a result of the previous sentence or anything. No, it's specifically. So she names her work or her group, her whatever show, after Mexico and Japanese names for dreams. Specifically, her work is grounded in the artistic traditions of both those different countries. Yeah, I think that's right. Not in addition, it's grounded in the countries. In contrast, therefore it's grounded in the, no, it's specifically. See. Definite transition question. Consequently, is it a result? Is it an alternative? Is it at the end, in the conclusion? Is it in addition to? So, okay. When one looks at the dark, craggy vistas in Hitoshi Fugo's evocative photo series, one's mind wanders off to the cratered subsurfaces of faraway planets. Blank. Consequently, it's the series title Flying Frying Pan that brings one back to Earth, reminding the viewer that each photo is actually a close-up view of a familiar household object, a frying pan. Okay, not consequently, it's the series title. Alternatively, ultimately, it's the series title. I think it's ultimately. In the end, it's the series at its peak, not really at its peak, but in the end, it's the series title, Flying Frying Pan, that brings one back to Earth. Not consequently, it's not an alternative. The title's not an alternative to anything, and it's not additional point. It's ultimately, that title is very sort of mundane, so it brings you back to Earth. Okay, we've got transition ideas here again. Alternative, specifically something focused or an example, for example, and a result, a concluding cause-effect type transition. Which is this? When soil becomes contaminated with toxic materials or metals, it can be removed from the ground and disposed of in a landfill. Blank, contaminated soil can be detoxified. Blank, that'd be afterward, kind of, would be my guess. So, alternatively, maybe it can be removed. So that's a possible. That's not definite, it's a possibility, which means it can be something else. So maybe it's an alternative here. Okay, so I think maybe alternatively, soil can be detoxified. So if it's toxic, they can dispose of it in a landfill, or alternatively, they can detoxify it. Okay, with this whatever method. Pyroremediation. That looks it. Specifically contaminated soil? No, it's not specifically. It's not, for example. And it's not a result of the previous sentence. A is the answer.